Live.
We're live.
Welcome, everybody. It's nice to be back. We can see there's some people here, which is lovely. Want to say thank you to everybody who's been in touch over the last week and has given us some feedback about the show. Is that what we're calling it? Is this a show? I don't know what it is, but
It's not a show.
it's whatever it is. Thank you for that. We really appreciate it, and thank you for your questions. I have some written down. Oh, not that you can see that because it's too glary, but they're there. So here we are on our second primer series session, and we're going to be doing chapters 4, 5, and 6
That's
today.
right.
Yeah. So general housekeeping, as always. Although this laptop's a bit nearer, which really is very helpful, still use caps lock if you have a question. It just helps us identify it in the box, which is actually quite small, but it just helps. Okay. All right. So chapter 4 then. Goodness.
Yeah. So this is all about the primer of the Zeta Race, the book.
Yep.
And it's a series that we're doing where we're covering just about every chapter. We're looking to see if we've got new information regarding what's been said. But I think that there's a lot of explanations that are required for the book as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of information in there, and you'll see that even today, as we're talking about specific subjects, we'll be expanding on them. So
yeah, and do ask questions.
Yeah.
Like, if we say something and you want us to talk about that more or explain it in a different way or just expand on it generally, then just type in and we'll do that. That's
Yeah.
what we're doing this for.
Well,
Okay. Ready?
oh boy. Okay, let's go.
We've had coffee, we're all good.
We've had coffee.
Chapter 4, the Zeta greeting.
I remember once in a sitting, the Zetas were talking about a type of, energetic process. How are you, or how was your energy? And they were talking about a numerical value from, say, 1 being you can't feel anything to 10 being really, too
Like
far too strong.
you're going to fall off your chair.
Fall off your chair. And so every time they came through, they'd start asking, what is your energy? And people would go, oh, I feel fantastic. And they go, no, we didn't mean that. Like, what's your energy? Have you got a number, that people would say 2, 3. If they got up to about 5, if a person said they were 5, that was about the maximum that they would let people get to. If a person said, oh, I think it's 7 or 8, they would reduce that. And what they did was they gave us an example of this. So a few times people had come to speak to the Zetas just by themselves. And for whatever reason, the Zetas would increase the energy around the person. And I've noticed many times that it happened that people would just basically go unconscious and end up laying just down on the chair. And I'd be saying to the Zetas, oh, you need to wind this energy back a bit because the person's sort of not conscious.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Zeta said, oh, no, we're giving them a gift. And I said, what's the gift? They go, we're giving them access to their race. And that was amazing. And a person then started, who was actually lying down sort of semi-conscious, started speaking in a star language. And when they came back out of it, they said that it was the best gift that they'd ever received because they had, for the first time in their lives, received contact from their own race. And I sort of, I thought, from an external perspective, just saw a person sort of fall over. And I thought, oh, that's, that's interesting. Or, they weren't injured or anything because I was sitting down. But I didn't realize that the Zetas were actually giving them a present, a gift, and
an experience.
And then, so through the sort of discussions about, well, what is your energy with them, some sitters said, well, what we'll do is we'll try to project energy the way that you do to the Zetas.
I guess we haven't actually said that. So
Yeah.
where does it come from? The Zetas, they don't shake hands or say hello or anything like that. They present in energy when they meet each other. And so what is your energy was the nearest equivalent they could come up with
Yeah.
to because humans can't generally present in energy. So
Well, some people tried,
tried.
and what happened was
Mm.
we've got the notes here. So it said that 3 people attempted to extend their consciousness into the room where the Zetas were, where I was sitting in trance, and the Zetas deemed the attempts as minor and said that they had tried, but they hadn't really done much. One person, basically, the Zeta said all they were trying to do was physically force their energy into the room. Another person was presenting chaotic energy, and another person was presenting psychic energy. And the Zetas had said, although the 3 attempts from different people were, sort of interesting, it wasn't what they were talking about in regards to what is your energy.
Mm.
And what they actually mean by that is, you as a person, what is your ability to extend yourself in consciousness? And that's what they do. They extend themselves in consciousness. So if you ask them what is their energy, they'll say that they are at one or in silence or something, in wellness or something like that. It was a good example from them as to how chaotic humans can be as well. Anyway, next question.
Well, we were asked, one of the questions we've been given is, and I'm just trying to read my handwriting as always.
Good luck.
Have the Zetas ever told us what they experience when they're communicating through you?
Well, you'll have to answer that.
As I say, they have. The answer is that they have.
Yeah.
And so when they're within Paul, we'll say that, communicating with sitters in a sitting, they say that they can experience seeing humans in multiple different ways. They have the ability to see us as we look to us now, if they want to. But more often than not, though, they seem to suggest that they view us in different ways. So in one sitting, they saw each individual person as color, as represented by color. We know what one person was a red and blue, another was a purple, another was a yellowy color. And to them, their description of the color was based on the person's frequency, I guess. Or that's the nearest analogy that they could give.
Well, the thing is with them is that they see outside of the human visual spectrum. And so they're able to see into the infrared spectrum as well. And so when they see a human, they would see them, as we discussed the other day, is it blue?
In like a blue scale.
In like a blue scale, isn't it? It's very interesting.
It's like monotone, one color, and in blues. I've experienced that once. They gave me the experience of seeing how they see as best as I can do, and everything was in shades of blue. It was very interesting.
This also comes down to contact, doesn't it? So if you can't see it, if this is your visual spectrum and a being is outside of that, then they could be just walking around the room and you won't even see them, or you'll see a distortion.
We often see,
and we do see distortions. Well, it doesn't mean that every distortion is an alien.
That's true
As well. Yeah.
They say they often see people as just light. They've talked about just light. And they've also described viewing humans during the sitting process as different biological structures. So that purely represented as the nervous system, or purely represented as the muscular system. It's like they're able to see with sort of I don't know, X-ray eyes or MRI eyes, and they're able to isolate a human's certain aspects of their biological, physiological structure, and see the person just as as a series of veins or muscle or something. It's very, very intriguing.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that was that question.
Okay. That was that
That was
question.
that question, yeah. Sorry, someone did actually ask, what does it feel like sitting in the sitting with them from the sitter's perspective as well? It's quite interesting when they ask you what is your energy, it's always it's very it's a good question, because although it doesn't really give them much information, because of course the answer is relative to us. So if 0 was you were feeling completely normal and 10 was you're going to black out and fall off your chair, say you in the sitting you're feeling a 3 or a 4, right? Well, you only
Just
know,
comfortable.
yeah, you only know if you're feeling a 3 or a 4 because you've taken the time to notice what you felt like before you came into the sitting.
Mm.
So because it's a relative scale, it doesn't mean much to them, but it's a really good learning tool
Yeah.
for the sitters, because as the sitter going into the sitting, you're being made to think about the difference between how you feel now, so how we feel now just sitting here, versus what it feels like when the energy of the Zetas is with you now. And generally people are around a 2 or 3 or 4. Sometimes it can go as a 5. They don't like it to go more than a 5 for reasons Paul's already said. But so they acknowledge the value in the human beginning to have a tangible experience of the difference between their normal energetic state and their heightened state when they're within the energy of them when they're here. So yeah.
Okay. Well, that's the end of chapter 4.
Yeah, unless anyone's got any questions about any of that, and I can't see any at this point, so
That's okay.
we'll move on. Yeah. Chapter 5.
Chapter 5.
Go on. You go.
You want me to talk about chapter 5?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why are they here?
So why are the Zetas here? This is a massive question. And I think that if you think about contact and all of the stories that you may have read about contact and why people are being abducted or contacted or whatever, there isn't really a clear explanation from people as to why they're here. Now, you've got groups of people that, they may believe that they're just taking humans for that process, and other people believe that it's all about ascension. And then there's somewhere in the middle, there's always the truth in regards to this. But the Zetas did say years ago that they had noticed, I think it was about in 1970 or something, that there was a lot of electronic noise coming from this section of the galaxy or the solar system, and that they became alerted to the fact that this information was now bleeding across into their own area. Upon investigation, they found that humans had developed technology, and the technology was radio waves and a lot of other transmission devices, and that the humans were able to sort of affect the fabric of consciousness of other races, and not just the Zetas, a lot of other races as well. So the races got together and said, look, what are we going to do about this situation? If we look on a timeline, this human species is going to ultimately travel to us and bring with them all of their technologies. And if a collective consciousness is based around a different level of frequency and fabric or energetic fabric, it may be that race's spirit realm, if you want to call it that, or their collective consciousness is actually going to be affected in a way that is totally unseen by humans. Well, a lot of humans believe at this point that we're alone anyway, and so that's in the whole universe. So that's become
Very special.
very special. So in the end, the Zetas decided that they would do a few things. One was that they would use the spheres to encompass the planet in like an elliptical orbit. and they would use that process to hold the undulating consciousness of the human race. The second thing is that they would, as we talk about hybrids as nodes, that they would use under free will and permission of a person, the hybrid process of symbiotic relationship, and other races would do the same thing. And these races would come together on planet and use the hybrids, which are called nodes, to firstly monitor the actual consciousness of the planet and all of the human species through these hybrids. The second thing is that the hybrids themselves would then increase their consciousness. Some people would say ascension, although they've got the ascension process a little bit backwards. There is no dissolving of the three-dimensional physical form through ascension. It's an ascension of consciousness. And that consciousness is then going to abide in a relationship with other races where we become part of a community as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is much more complicated than just answering a certain thing.
Yeah. And they talked about working with the human hybrids to help them understand who they are.
Who the humans are or the
Yeah.
races are?
Understand that the human has a hybrid component to help that hybrid component remember who it is.
Yes, but that's dependent on the person and their level of ability to want to have connection as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A discussion point that came up recently in one of our sittings was what could people do to help raise and stabilize the humanity's collective consciousness. And the Zetas talked about meditation, being in stillness. Do you remember that discussion?
Yeah, well, I've listened to the recording of it, but I mean, there's certainly some of the things that can be done. They do say that the problem with the collective consciousness that's increasing, and this is in the primer, is it's in disarray and needs to be controlled and stabilized so that it can progress more quickly. Now, we also know through the newer AI technologies that are coming out that people are learning at a much faster exponential rate as well. This is going to cause or become a catalyst for this planet and this species as they ultimately move towards sort of their singularity process or the collective consciousness. Now, we did some research, and in, I think it was chapter 5 or 6, they said back in 2014 that they believed that the human species was 28 years away from their singularity process. That's 2042. All right. But when we have a look at what's happening with the latest technologies, we're seeing that there's a increase in the collective consciousness of the human race because people have now much more acclimated towards using these newer technologies as well. And the technology is also going to support humanity. And in the primer, the Zetas had said this in 2014, that the technology would support humans to becoming more self-aware and in ways that were unseen by humans as well. So just because you've got a technology doesn't mean that you know how ultimately it will react with species. And so people will learn about their own development as they start to interact with these technologies as well.
I've got a recollection of them saying quite recently, though, well, I say recently, within the last few years, that they brought that date forward. Haven't they brought that estimate forward by 10 years or so?
There was something said where it was 2036. That's not that far away.
No, it's really not.
It's really not, is it?
No.
But the Zetas aren't the only ones that are doing this. So there's also the Palladians and the Anunnaki, and there's the Council. And we talked about the Council in the last video. Um, the thing is that there's a lot of races, and of course, what has now been implemented, if people have read about this, is the gateway function. And the gateway function is based around people that are making decisions not go back to spirit realm. There's a lot more to this. You have to go to our website to read the gateway document. It's fairly substantial, and it talks about the ability of people to be able to return to their own race, but bringing with them all their own humanity and their own experiences. Or two, if a person's fully a spirit person, they can go through the gateway, but they have to choose a race before they pass over. So there's some really specific information about the gateway technology. And I often hear people go, "Oh, you know, this is a prison planet, and you know, we're all trapped in the spirit realm and all the rest of it." But they don't realise that there's actually a secondary process that's been developed by extraterrestrials as well.
It's like a whole
It's a whole other thing.
discussion on in its own
Yeah.
right, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
There was a question about what we've just talked about. Do you think interdimensional races are affected in the same way as, say, the Zetas, by the energetic noise of humanity?
That's a really good question. I remember once somebody asked the Zetas that about explosions that occur on planet, and they said that on some level it will always disrupt frequency. So if you're non-physical and you're part of an interdimensional race, that
maybe it would affect you
it will
more.
affect. Yeah, it will definitely. It could affect them. We're about to drink some water.
It's thirsty. What they're talking about in the primer. Maybe that's something I can talk to them about next time as well.
All
right. I will make a note of that.
The Zetas have also talked about the fact that humans are going to become much more aware broadly of their own telepathic abilities. And that what will happen is that people will start to notice much more the synchronous type behaviors of themselves and other people. They may go to say something, but the other person says it before that, that you may be experiencing a lot more deja vu. And so we need to understand that not only now are we living in our three-dimensional space and experiencing consciousness, but we're also experiencing an embedding of other races' consciousness within our own. And this is as a combined collective mind forming through nodes, which are hybrids, forming a undulating collective consciousness of the human race.
I mean, I know we've done a whole live show, and we actually did a Q&A about collective consciousness, and we talked about the nodes, but I just find it like really, I don't know why, I find it quite interesting. The fact that they even describe hybrids as nodes, and this whole network of hybrids who are subconsciously helping to stabilize this collective consciousness in its infancy as it grows and emerges and develops.
I wonder, what about the opposite? What if this had never happened? What if the hybrids had never ever incarnated onto the planet? What would have happened? Would humanity have just gone along?
That's
another question. Would humanity have just gone along and then maybe to its ultimate demise at some point in the future without the contact? And this comes down to what is disclosure, and the problem with disclosure is people think that it's either one thing or the other. They either think it's humans disclosing or race beings disclosing via craft.
This is moving on to chapter 6.
Yeah,
really,
and this is where we're heading now. So
okay,
you've got questions about 6 as well. Yeah.
Yes.
So chapter 6
yes, I have.
in the primer revolves around the hypothesis that there is a control system involving extraterrestrial races and spirit realm beings, and what they're doing is managing their reactions to energetic phenomenon like materialization of craft, reports, ectoplasm, to control the general perception of proof regarding the phenomenon and creating conditions that help raise the state of the collective consciousness. I'll give you an example. So you see a craft and you've never seen one before, or you see a massive flash of light in the sky, but you just asked for that to happen. From that point on, your life has changed irrevocably, and you'll be going, that happened, it really happened. And if someone's with you, that helps because you've seen that. And so these phenomenon that occur around us, although they could be just for 1 second, they could change your life forever in a really super positive way as well. And so this is called the control system, because and from a spiritual perspective, say you're in a sitting and the physical medium then produces an apport. An apport is a gift from spirit people. Well, for the rest of your life, if you've seen that, you're going to wonder how that really happened. And there'll be days where you'll doubt that you did see it. And there'll be days where and we've seen this plenty of times ourselves.
Oh, good, yeah. Yeah.
You'll wonder if what you saw was reality or it wasn't, what you believed it to be. And so this is what's called the way to control humanity in a way where you get a little bit of information and then you've got to think through it. What does that actually mean, and how does it affect you? Yeah.
I think when you experience high phenomena, I've just made something up there.
High phenomena.
But when you experience an event that is so far out of your normal day-to-day life, it can definitely take it can take time to adjust to what you've experienced. I remember being away on excavations when I was younger and in a very kind of isolated area. And it was just us digging for months on end, away from normal society. And in those environments, emotions are heightened. It's just everything's heightened. There's because that's all you've got. You've only got the people you're with. And I was undergoing a lot of spiritual, I don't know what the word is, enlightenment at the time. Like, I was experiencing spirit people coming to me. I was seeing semi-objectively. I was experiencing an awful lot that came on very, very, very quickly. And in that environment that I was in, everything was heightened and it caused me to shut down. It was too much too soon for me. And for a good couple of years, I just was like, no, I can't deal with it. It was just too much. And so these control systems they have in place, although there's a lot of people out there going, oh, humans are ready for disclosure, just bring the craft and blah, blah, blah. I think there's a lot of people that just literally could not handle it. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. It's just so far beyond their normal day-to-day life. To suddenly have something huge like that happen can cause people just to shut down. And so spirit people, the extraterrestrials that care about humanity, and there's some that don't, unfortunately, but the ones that do are having this very gentle approach to it, to allow us to grow in consciousness, to be able to understand what's going on around us in this controlled way. Some people have a real aversion to that controlled disclosure, but I think when you realize what can happen when stuff happens too fast, you understand why it's happening like it's happening.
Okay,
that's my thoughts.
That's
anyway.
your thoughts on it anyway. Okay, well, that's really good. Yeah. So the Zetas have described the control system as a release of information and a process which is malleable and able to change, and it also serves a purpose. The abductor race, which is the race that is not part of the Zetas, does not participate in the control system, and many races do not concern themselves with humans' activity at all. And so the control system is it's very interesting, because you've got to ask yourself, if extraterrestrials just disclosed their presence, the control system would no longer exist. And so why is a control system actually needed?
Mm.
Yeah.
It's, I think it's probably needed now. I think if the governments and all those people had just been honest from the beginning,
Mm.
we'd be in a very different
But
place.
let's be upfront here. When we say the government probably has nothing to do with this.
Yeah,
It's
and
individuals
those
within
people.
organisations. Like
I'll just call
who
it.
even knows what that means?
I know.
So I mean, that's what someone said to me. They go, "There's no such thing really. It's just people working in an organisation, and those people may have chosen not to give that information." So that's just it. That's just the truth of the matter.
Yeah,
It really is.
yeah,
All right.
sure is.
The Zetas have acknowledged that there's been complications in regards to disclosure. Of course there is, and some of the unintended effects were the fact that when craft landed, that some humans were burnt. When Dr. Gary Nolan is doing his research and for the pilots, and the pilots, when they go near craft, they also are having some physical issues, as well as possibly even some other psychological issues. But
You know all about that, don't you? The
oh,
issues that come from being
yes,
near extraterrestrials.
yeah, and that's
Mm.
this is what I believe, just from my own perspective. My hypothesis is that you can't actually have disclosure because people aren't trained for proper contact.
Yep.
It takes many years of very difficult training for a person to be able to have clear and concise contact with beings. The way that you resolve the energy after they come is very, very different. You can't just go, oh, well, I'll go ground and eat chocolate. It doesn't work that way. So it takes a lot of training. The Zetas call it strength of mind training. And that's why Si and I actually teach people how to do contact through what's called point of origin training. So we've found it to be a really interesting process, haven't we, working with people and teaching them how to contact their own race.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's not what they think it's going to be.
And that's actually in the primer as well, I believe, in chapter 6, where the Zetas talk about that disclosure is actually based around the nodes. It's not
The hybrids.
Yeah, the hybrids. It's not based around humans disclosing or extraterrestrials disclosing. It's an internal disclosure that takes place. And I think for people that actually have had contact, they'd realise that from their perspective, that disclosure is internal. It is internal to a person's consciousness. They then talk about it with other people. So it's an internal process that's coming from the inside out as well.
And we've always said the people that have experienced genuine extraterrestrial or interdimensional contact are not waiting for the governments or those people to disclose. They don't need to. Like once you, as Paul said, once you've had an experience, you don't need disclosure from anyone else.
Yeah. All right. Well, and are there any more questions? Because
no, that's it. That was pretty much it.
We're finished. There you go. It's a short one.
Yeah, I mean,
33 minutes.
I'll just say, if we have a ongoing discussion at the moment about these series that we're doing, that is being facilitated through our Facebook group of the same name, the Zeta Connection on Facebook. There's a chat group that's going on about this, and we'll keep it open for as long as we do these live sessions. So if you do want to join in on that chat, then come and find us on Facebook. We do have a Discord chat group as well. Yeah. And
interestingly, we send out a weekly email, and we're doing remote viewing targeting addresses out each week as well. So
For a little while.
just for a little while, people are enjoying it and they think it's interesting
Yeah.
as well. So
And yeah, so if you have done that this week, the answer will be in this
That's right.
weekend's newsletter.
that's right. And if you're not getting those newsletters, then what you need to be doing is just going to the zetaconnection.com and subscribing to the email list.
Yeah, seeing as we're talking about that, if you have signed up and you've never seen a mail from us, it's probably hiding in your spam box. So
Spam.
go and have a look. It's in
Okay.
spam or junk. Okay,
Okay, well,
job done.
we'll see you all next week.
Bye.
Cheers, bye.